going to look at the answers to the January 2024 Paper 2 Social Studies exam. Alright, for the first section, it starts off with define each of the following terms. We need to define nuclear family and polyandry, 2 marks each. For this, we can say a nuclear family is a family unit made up of 2 parents and their child or children living together in one household. That is nuclear family. Polyandry is a form of marriage in which one woman is married to more than one man at the same time. Always remember that poly refers to multiple. Andry is when it is men, so multiple men. So one woman with multiple men. If it asks for polygyny, G-Y-N-Y, then that would have been one man and multiple women. If it said polygamy, G-A-M-Y, then that would have just been one person with several spouses. So the ending part of the word is the most important. B asks to outline 2 benefits of living in an extended family for 4 marks, 2 marks each. So what we have is, one benefit of living in an extended family is that there is more support for children and elderly relatives. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, and older siblings can help with childcare guidance and supervision. Our next benefit is that financial responsibilities can be shared among several family members. This makes it easier to pay bills, buy food, and meet other household needs. C. We must now suggest 3 actions that an association concerned with social issues may take to minimize the cases of domestic violence. We must also explain why each is successful. So our first suggestion is that governments can conduct public education campaigns to raise awareness about domestic violence and teach people about healthy relationships and conflict resolution. These campaigns can be done through schools, television, radio, social media, community meetings, and churches so that both young people and adults receive the message. They can educate citizens about the different forms of abuse, such as physical, emotional, verbal, sexual, and financial abuse, and help people to recognize warning signs early. Our explanation for why it will be successful goes, this strategy is likely to be successful because it helps victims understand that domestic violence is not normal or acceptable and that it is punishable by law. As a result, victims may feel more confident to report abuse or seek help from the police, social workers, shelters, or trusted relatives. In addition, public education can change community attitudes by encouraging neighbors, friends, and family members to stop protecting abusers and instead support victims. Therefore, these campaigns can reduce domestic violence by increasing awareness, promoting healthier relationships, and making society less tolerant of abusive behavior. Now, our next action will be that governments can provide counseling and support services for victims and families affected by domestic violence. These services may include trained counselors, social workers, hotlines, shelters, and support groups. Through these services, victims can receive emotional support to cope with fear and trauma, as well as practical guidance on reporting abuse, finding safe accommodation, and protecting themselves and their children. Our explanation for this strategy is likely to be successful because domestic violence often leaves victims feeling afraid, ashamed, confused, and powerless. Counseling can help them rebuild their confidence, cope with trauma, and understand that the abuse is not their fault. It can also guide victims in making safer decisions, such as creating a safety plan, reporting the abuse, or seeking legal protection. Our third action is governments can establish shelters and emergency hotlines so that victims of domestic violence can get immediate protection, advice, and assistance. Shelters provide a safe and secure temporary place for victims and their children to stay if they need to leave an abusive home quickly, protecting them from further harm. Emergency hotlines allow victims to contact trained professionals at any time to receive guidance on what to do, where to go, and how to access police, medical, or legal services. Our explanation for this is that this strategy is likely to be successful because it provides immediate support in dangerous situations, reducing the risk of continued abuse. In addition, it gives victims a practical and confidential way to escape and seek help, even if they have limited resources or support from family and friends. Therefore, shelters and hotlines play an important role in protecting victims and helping them move towards safety and recovery. Now, our second question is number 2. We must now define the term social group. So we have that a social group is a collection of 2 or more people who interact with one another, share common interests or goals, and develop a sense of belonging. B, we now need to state 2 characteristics of a formal group. So formal is an important word there. So two characteristics are: it has a defined structure with specific roles and responsibilities, and it is created to achieve a particular goal or purpose. Outline 2 differences between democratic leadership and autocratic leadership. In democratic leadership, members are encouraged to participate in decision making, whereas in autocratic leadership, the leader makes decisions alone without much input from members. And in democratic leadership, communication tends to flow both ways and members' opinions are valued. Whereas in autocratic leadership, communication is mainly one way and members are expected to follow instructions. Our question D was: suggest 3 actions a government may take to ensure that good governance is practiced, and then explain why each one is successful. So our first action is: a government can introduce and strictly enforce anti-corruption laws to deal with the misuse of public funds and abuse of power. This includes laws against bribery, fraud, embezzlement, and favoritism in awarding contracts. Independent bodies can be established to investigate and prosecute corrupt officials. For example, a minister who accepts a bribe to award a government contract unfairly can be charged and removed from office. Penalties such as fines, dismissal, or imprisonment can be applied to offenders. Our explanation is: this action is likely to be successful because strong laws act as a deterrent to dishonest behavior. Public officials will be less likely to engage in corruption if they know they can be caught and punished. It also promotes fairness and ensures that public resources are used for their intended purposes. In addition, it helps to build integrity and discipline within the public sector. Therefore, enforcing anti-corruption laws helps to strengthen trust and confidence in government. Our second action is: a government can promote transparency and accountability by making its actions and spending open to the public. This includes publishing budgets, financial reports, and details of government projects. Regular audits can be carried out by independent bodies to ensure funds are used properly. For example, the government can show how money is spent on building schools, hospitals, and roads. Citizens, the media, and watchdog groups can then monitor government activities. Our explanation for this is: this action is likely to be successful because it reduces opportunities for corruption and secrecy. Officials are more likely to act responsibly when they know their actions are being scrutinized. It also allows problems of misuse of funds to be identified and corrected quickly. Furthermore, transparency helps citizens understand how their taxes are being used. Therefore, this builds public trust and encourages responsible governance. Action 3. A government can encourage citizen participation by involving people in decision-making processes. This can be done through public consultations, town hall meetings, surveys, and online feedback systems. Citizens can share their opinions and concerns about national issues and policies. For example, people can be consulted before new taxes are introduced or major projects undertaken. This allows the government to better understand the needs and priorities of the population. This action is likely to be successful because policies will reflect the views of the people. When citizens feel included, they are more likely to support and follow government decisions. It also promotes democracy and strengthens the relationship between the government and citizens. In addition, it encourages accountability as leaders must respond to public concerns. Therefore, citizen participation leads to more effective and accepted governance. Moving on to question 3 of the paper now, sustainable development and use of resources. First question is define the term birth rate. So our definition is, birth rate is the number of live births per 1,000 people in a population in a given year. We have a line graph here. So the line graph below shows the population for country X from 2019 to 2023. Study the graph and then answer the questions that follow. On our x-axis, we have our years. So we have 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023. On our y-axis, we have our population in thousands. So where you see 380, that is 380,000, 390,000, 400,000, so on. Our first question asks, so we must now describe the population change over the period 2019 to 2023. Population change means how the population has changed or what processes or what changes it went through over the years. 2019 starts at 390,000, because that is the number where it intersects on the graph there. 2020, it went up to 395,000. 2021, it was consistent, or it stayed at a stable 395,000. 2022, it went right up to 410,000. Then for 2023, it went all the way up to 420,000. So we noticed it increased, then it was stable, then it increased again. So how do we describe that? So we say the population showed an overall increase from 2019 to 2023. It rose slightly from 2019 to 2020, remained about the same in 2021, then increased more sharply in 2022 and continued rising in 2023. So we describe the overall pattern, then we describe each year individually. Now our next question goes, calculate the change in the size of the population between 2020 and 2022. So let's look at 2020. It is at 395,000. 2022 is at 410,000. So the difference would be 410,000 minus 395,000. So the answer we have is 15,000. Now we must state one factor other than birth rate that would cause a decrease or an increase in the size of a population. So we have one factor other than birth rate that would cause a decrease or an increase in the size of a population is migration. Now, C. The development of human resources in schools should include the use of technology. Suggest 3 actions that governments may implement in schools to prepare students to function in the technological age. And explain why each one is successful. So, our first action is governments can prepare students to function in technological age by providing computers, tablets, and reliable internet access in schools. This would give students regular opportunities to use technology during lessons and for independent learning. For example, students can use devices to do research, complete assignments, watch educational videos, and access online learning platforms. Our explanation for this is this action is likely to be successful because students need direct and consistent exposure to technology in order to develop digital skills. When they use these tools regularly, they become more confident and comfortable with technology. As a result, they are better prepared for further education, the workplace, and everyday life in a digital society. Action 2. Governments can also prepare students for the technological age by training both teachers and students in ICT skills and the effective use of digital tools. This training may include typing, using word processing, software, creating presentations, sending emails, conducting online research, and using educational apps safely and effectively. For example, teachers can be trained to use smart boards, Google Classroom, or presentation software in their lessons, while students learn how to create documents and presentations. Our explanation is that this action is likely to be successful because technology can only improve learning if users know how to use it properly. Trained teachers can guide students more effectively, and students can develop practical skills that are useful for school, work, and communication in modern society. Our third action is governments may also prepare students to function in a technological age by integrating technology into the curriculum so that it is used in everyday teaching and learning. This means students should use technology not only in ICT classes but also in subjects such as English, science, social studies, and mathematics. For example, students may use the internet to research topics, prepare slide presentations, type reports, analyze data, or collaborate on projects online. Our explanation is that this action is likely to be successful because students will see technology as a normal and useful part of learning rather than as something separate. As a result, they will build confidence, creativity, communication skills, and problem-solving abilities, which are all important for success in the modern technological world. Okay, so now we are going to look at the essay section. First is on regional integration. State the difference between a bilateral and multilateral agreement. So we have regional integration is a process by which neighboring countries cooperate closely in economic, social, and political matters in order to achieve shared goals. In the Caribbean, regional integration is mainly promoted through organizations such as CARICOM and the CARICOM Single Market and Economy. These arrangements help Caribbean countries work together to improve trade, movement, and development. Our next question is to state two factors that may hinder regional integration. Sorry, that is not what we answered. We were supposed to answer the difference in bilateral and multilateral agreements. Because this is an essay, you need to have some form of introduction. And if you look through all of the questions, you will realize they're talking about regional integration. That is also the topic of this whole section. So in your introduction, you could easily just talk about regional integration. Then get into the essay. So one difference between a bilateral and a multilateral agreement is the number of countries involved. A bilateral agreement is made between two countries only, while a multilateral agreement involves 3 or more countries. Another difference is the scope of the agreement. Bilateral agreements usually deal with matters affecting 2 countries directly, while multilateral agreements often address wider regional or international issues affecting many countries. Then we must state 2 factors that may hinder regional integration. So 2 factors that may hinder regional integration are insularity and differences in levels of development. First, insularity can hinder integration because each Caribbean country is separated by sea and may focus mainly on its own interests. This can make transportation, communication, and cooperation more difficult. Second, differences in levels of development can create problems because some countries are more economically advanced than others. As a result, less developed countries may fear that they will not benefit equally from integration. Now we must outline 2 benefits of regional integration to Caribbean countries. So 2 benefits of regional integration to Caribbean countries are increased trade opportunities and greater movement of labor and skills. First, integration creates a larger market for Caribbean goods and services. Businesses can sell to more people across the region, which can increase income and encourage production. Second, integration allows skilled persons to move more freely to work in other Caribbean territories. This helps to reduce skills shortages and provides better employment opportunities for Caribbean citizens. Okay, now we must suggest 3 actions that individual citizens of Caribbean countries may take to support regional integration. We must explain why each action is successful. So we have individual citizens can support regional integration by buying goods and services from other Caribbean countries. For example, they can purchase Caribbean-made food, clothing, music, crafts, books, and other products instead of only buying items from outside the region. This action is likely to be successful because it encourages trade among Caribbean countries and helps regional businesses to grow. When citizens support Caribbean products, more money stays within the region. Jobs can be created, and Caribbean countries become less dependent on foreign goods. Another action citizens can take is to respect and appreciate the cultures of other Caribbean people. They can learn about the music, food, festivals, language, history, and traditions of neighboring Caribbean countries. This is likely to be successful because it helps to reduce prejudice, discrimination, and negative stereotypes. When Caribbean people understand and respect one another, they are more likely to cooperate and see themselves as part of one regional community. This strengthens unity and makes regional integration easier to achieve. Citizens can also support regional integration by traveling, studying, or working in other Caribbean countries where possible. Through travel, school programs, sporting events, and work opportunities, Caribbean citizens can interact with people from other territories and share skills, ideas, and experiences. This action is likely to be successful because direct contact builds friendships, trust, and cooperation among Caribbean people. It also helps citizens benefit from regional opportunities and strengthens the social and economic links between Caribbean countries. In conclusion, regional integration is important for the growth and development of the Caribbean. Although factors such as insularity and unequal development may slow the process, the region can still benefit greatly through increased trade, movement of labor, and stronger cooperation. With better public education and improved transport links, Caribbean countries can continue to strengthen regional integration. Now we look at our question on communication. First we have to define the term communication. So we have it as communication is a process by which people send, receive, and understand messages through spoken words, written language, symbols, signs, or body language. It is essential in all societies because it helps people to share information, express feelings, and maintain relationships. Now we have to state two forms of communication used in the Caribbean. So we have two forms of communication used in the Caribbean are verbal communication and written communication. Verbal communication involves the use of spoken words. In the Caribbean, people communicate verbally through conversations, speeches, telephone, radio programs, and classroom discussions. Written communication involves messages expressed in writing, such as letters, emails, text messages, reports, notices, and newspapers. Now outline two ways in which geographical factors can affect communication in the Caribbean region. So we have two ways in which geographical factors can affect communication in the Caribbean region at distance and separation by sea and natural barriers or disasters. First, Caribbean countries are separated by sea, so communication between territories may be more difficult and expensive than communication within one mainland country. This can slow the spread of information and make face-to-face interaction less frequent. Second, hurricanes, flooding, and mountainous terrain can interrupt communication systems by damaging roads, telephone lines, internet services, and broadcasting facilities. Now, suggest three measures that governments in the Caribbean may take to ensure that media houses publish accurate information and explain why each is successful. So governments in the Caribbean can ensure that media houses publish accurate information by introducing and enforcing media laws and regulations. These laws can require newspapers, television stations, radio stations, and online news platforms to verify information before publishing it. Media houses that repeatedly publish false or misleading information can be fined, warned, or required to issue public corrections. This measure is likely to be successful because it creates consequences for careless reporting and encourages media houses to check their facts before sharing information with the public. Another measure governments can take is to establish or strengthen independent media regulatory bodies. These bodies can monitor media houses, investigate public complaints, and ensure that journalists follow proper standards of reporting. They can also require media houses to correct false information quickly when mistakes are made. This measure is likely to be successful because an independent body can hold media houses accountable without the government directly controlling the news. As a result, the public can have greater confidence that information being published is fair, balanced, and accurate. Governments can also support training programs for journalists and media workers. These programs can teach journalists how to check sources, avoid bias, identify fake news, and report responsibly on sensitive issues such as crime, politics, health, and disasters. This measure is likely to be successful because inaccurate information is sometimes published due to poor research, lack of training, or pressure to report quickly. When journalists are properly trained, they are more likely to investigate carefully, use reliable sources, and publish information that is accurate and useful to citizens. conclusion, communication is important because it allows people in the Caribbean to share ideas, information, and feelings. Although geographical factors such as distance and sea and natural disasters can affect communication, governments can help by ensuring that media houses provide accurate information. This will allow citizens to make better decisions and build a more informed and responsible society. Now we are going to look at the consumer affairs question. So first we have to define consumer demand. Consumer demand refers to the amount of a good or service that consumers are willing and able to buy at a given price over a specific period of time. State two forms of payment used by consumers of credit to purchase goods or services. Two forms of payment used by consumers on credit to purchase goods or services are hire purchase and credit card payment. Hire purchase allows a consumer to pay for an item in installments while using it, but ownership usually comes after the final payment. A credit card allows a consumer to buy now and pay later through a financial institution, often with interest if the balance is not paid off quickly. Outline two factors that may result in a decrease in consumer demand for a product. Two factors that may result in a decrease in consumer demand for a product are high prices and falling income. First, when the price of a product rises too much, consumers may buy less of it or switch to a cheaper substitute. Second, when people have lower incomes or become unemployed, they have less purchasing power and may cut back on spending. Now we need to suggest 3 ways in which small businesses may use technology to increase consumer demand for their products. So small businesses may use social media to advertise their products to more customers. For example, they can post pictures, videos, prices, and special offers on platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and WhatsApp. This is likely to be successful because many consumers use social media every day, so the business can reach a large audience quickly and at a low cost. Attractive posts and customer reviews can also encourage people to become interested in the product and make a purchase. Small businesses may also use online shopping platforms or websites to sell their products. For example, a business can create a website, use an online store, or allow customers to place orders through WhatsApp and pay electronically. This is likely to be successful because it makes purchasing more convenient for customers. Consumers do not have to visit the physical business place, so people from different communities or even other Caribbean countries may be able to buy the product more easily. Another way small businesses may use technology is by sending digital promotions and updates to customers. They can use email, text messages, WhatsApp broadcasts, or loyalty apps to inform customers about discounts, new products, and special packages. This is likely to be successful because regular communication reminds customers about the business and encourages repeat purchases. When customers receive information about deals or new items directly, they may be more willing to buy and recommend the business to others. In conclusion, consumer demand is important because it affects how much businesses are able to sell. While high prices and falling income can reduce demand, small businesses can use technology to attract customers, make shopping easier, and encourage repeat purchases. This can help them increase sales and grow successfully. The last question of the paper is on tourism. So first we have to define heritage tourism. So heritage tourism is tourism that involves people traveling to experience and appreciate the history, culture, traditions, monuments, and heritage sites of a country or community. Outline 3 ways in which tourism can harm the physical land, sea, air environment of your country. So tourism can cause land pollution when tourists and tourism businesses produce large amounts of garbage such as plastic bottles, food containers, wrappers, and other waste. If this waste is not properly collected and disposed of, it can be left on beaches, roadsides, nature trails, and near tourist attractions. This makes the country look dirty, harms wildlife, and reduces the natural beauty that attracts visitors in the first place. Tourism can cause water or sea pollution when hotels, restaurants, cruise ships, and visitors release sewage, chemicals, oil, or garbage into rivers, beaches, and the sea. For example, waste from boat or coastal hotels can pollute the water and harm fish. coral reefs, and other marine life. This can also make beaches unsafe and unpleasant for both locals and tourists. Tourism can cause air pollution because large numbers of tourists often require more planes, cruise ships, buses, taxis, and rental vehicles. These forms of transport release smoke and harmful gases into the atmosphere. As a result, the air quality may become poorer, especially in busy tourist areas, and this can contribute to environmental problems such as climate change and health issues for people. The government can reduce the harm caused by tourism by enforcing strict environmental laws for hotels, restaurants, tour operators, and cruise ships. These laws can require tourism businesses to dispose of garbage and sewage properly, protect beaches, and avoid dumping waste into the sea. This action is likely to be successful because businesses that break the law can be fined, closed temporarily, or forced to clean up the damage. As a result, tourism businesses would be more careful and responsible in how they treat the environment. Another action the government can take is to provide proper waste disposal and recycling facilities in tourist areas. For example, bins, recycling points, public toilets, and proper sewage systems can be placed near beaches, parks, and popular attractions. This action is likely to be successful because tourists and businesses would have a convenient way to dispose of waste properly instead of littering or polluting the environment. Cleaner tourist areas would also protect wildlife and make the country more attractive to visitors. The government can also promote ecotourism and environmental education. This can involve encouraging hotels and tour companies to use environmentally friendly practices such as saving water and electricity, limiting plastic use, and protecting natural habitats. Tourists can also be educated through signs, campaigns, and tour guides about keeping beaches clean and respecting wildlife. This action is likely to be successful because it teaches both visitors and businesses to enjoy tourism without damaging the environment, helping the industry to remain sustainable. In conclusion, heritage tourism can help people appreciate a country's history and culture, but it can also harm the environment if it is not managed properly. Therefore, governments must enforce environmental laws, provide proper waste facilities, and promote ecotourism so that tourism can continue without destroying the natural beauty of the country. And that is all for this video. Thank you for watching.